Hey guys, this is Donna from Donna Makes Art, and this video is start of a new series of bite-sized tutorials enabling you to do a watercolor portrait. Previously, I attempted a daily upload challenge that demonstrated my process on how to do watercolor portraits. And I received a comment asking if I could do future videos explaining more in-depth on how I'm approaching my pieces. In fact, she gave me a very detailed breakdown on what she wanted to see from me, so thank you so much for your suggestion, Exploited Reborn. This series is for you. If you've been following me on this channel for a while, you'll know that I have been meaning to do some Skillshare courses on this. But the task proved a monster that I was too intimidated to tackle. Presented with this golden opportunity, I thought that it would be great to do some bite-sized tutorials here on YouTube. There are a few advantages to this approach. First being to see if I could actually teach. Sharing what I've learned comes naturally to me, and I have given a few workshops in the past. Portrait painting is a little bit more complicated than anything that I've tried to teach before. The second thing that I want to get out from this series is actually feedback from you guys. When you reach a certain level in your craft, certain tips and techniques become second nature to you, and you tend to forget how to see things through the lens of a total beginner. So I need you guys to see the gaps and call me out when there are small things that I forget to explain. Lastly, this is a test for me to see if there is enough interest to pour in my time in making this course. This will be determined by the number of views and comments, even likes that I'll receive from this series. So if you want to see this course come to life, I'd really appreciate it if you guys would share this to your art buddies. So without further ado, let's jump into it. This series will comprise of 4 things: anatomy, value, color theory, and demo. Just like in anything else, painting a portrait needs a firm foundation, a structure that we can hang everything else on. When learning about a new subject, I find it extremely helpful to know how things function. So let's look under the hood, shall we? While muscles and fats do influence our appearances, our skull is the structure where everything else hangs. This is made up of 22 bones, but we'll just quickly run down the most relevant parts. Now, the goal of actually mentioning these things is not to give you guys a test, don't worry. Rather, it's my goal for you guys to know how all these things are connected and to give you a deeper understanding of the human form. Hopefully, this stock knowledge will help us avoid those beginner mistakes of having a neck that looks disjointed from the head, or treating the cheekbone as if it's a flat surface. When drawing, we usually consider the eye socket, but I never really thought of it as comprising of different bones. The top socket is actually part of our frontal bone, which also incidentally forms our forehead and brow ridge. Next, we have the zygomatic bone, which forms the outer arch of our socket and the majority of our cheek. This bone wraps around towards the ear, which then leads us to the maxilla bone, forming the bottom of our eye socket and the bony structure of our nose, leading down to the upper portion of our jaw. The mandible, which forms our lower jaw, is connected to our temporal bone. It's the temporal, occipital, and parietal bone that makes up the back of our head and forms the egg shape that we usually see drawn in manga. The 7 cervical vertebrae that make up the neck is then inserted into our skull and connected to our occipital bone. whose muscles connect us to the shoulder blades and the rest of the body. So was that technical enough for you? Because it was for me. If you want to see this illustrated in a better manner and admittedly explained in a more detailed way, I highly recommend that you guys check out Modern Day James's video, which I'll link down below. The same resource that I used actually to draw all these information from for this segment. I did want to discuss the muscles and fats that majorly affect the planes of the face. The orbicularis oris, which is basically shaped as a cylinder with bloated sides, depicted quite accurately as a can of tuna that's about to blow. This is mainly the muscle why our lips project outwards from the skull. Similarly, we have the orbicularis oculi, which forms our eyelids. There are also the superior orbital and inferior orbital fats, but I'm not quite sure how much that influences the shapes of our eyelids. What I do want to note is the premental fat that forms the bump on our chin, and our submental fat, the fat that makes double chins. When I was researching on this topic, I was surprised to note how underrated this subject was, and how little the knowledge I had on muscles and fats. Now, armed with this information, I think it made me a better artist, knowing what causes the small bumps in our faces, and understanding more the subtle shifts of muscles when we change expressions. There's still so much on the subject that I have barely scratched the surface. So if you're interested to learn more about these subjects, I'll link Mark Brunet's video on fats on our face, as well as Proco's library of tutorials with dedicated videos breaking down each feature of our face. Speaking of Proco, he also has a video explaining the Loomis method, which I mentioned in my previous video. So before we move on, I want you to look at your notes, take a long, hard look at it. Have you memorized everything? Good. Now crumple it and throw it away. Because all the bones and muscles and fats that we discussed can be grouped together using two basic shapes: a sphere and a box. A sphere that's cut on the sides will represent our cranium, and the cube below will represent our jawbone. Measure half of the sphere and draw a horizontal line representing the brow. Just below the sphere is where we place the nose, and the jaw is just about half the length of the sphere. Draw a line that represents the chin. Note that men have wider chins while females have smaller chins. Now connect the chin to the rest of the face by sketching in a line with a slight corner representing the jaw. The head is typically 5 eyes wide, and using this piece of logic, we can determine a good estimation on where our eye placement would be. The nose, however, is just 1 eye wide, and the lips relative to the pupils. To end with a good note and shake off all those technical vibes, I'll include a short demo of how I apply these things to my illustrations. I honestly thought that I was following Loomis's method quite closely, but in further researching these things, I realized that it's a bunch of mixes. Small techniques that I picked up while drawing anime for the majority of my childhood, to the tricks that my teachers in college taught me, as well as small tells and shorthands that I developed throughout my art journey. The method that I showed you is just a starting point. The drawing that we did, based on the ideal facial structure of a person. But despite all the celebrities and the models that we have around the world, everyone is uniquely imperfect, which is what makes us beautiful. So treat these things that I taught you as a guideline and adjust according to the reference that you have. Oh, and I also found a resource that was quite helpful, especially if you're into character designs, on the study of misionomy, which means facial features and expressions, by QOV Studios. The series talks about what makes a person attractive and how our appearances actually has a psychological effect that makes us judge a book by its cover. Right, so for what I do, typically I start off with the sphere for the cranium, just like Andrew Loomis, and then I quickly veer away by putting first the center line, then roughly estimating where the jaw is, then chiseling out the shape of the lower half of the face. This gives me more flexibility on what facial shape I want to form my drawing. I treat pencil work as if I'm a sculptor, molding the drawing as I see fit. From there, I indicate the guidelines for the eyes and make a quick note of where the nose is. My hairline is typically 1/3 of the half of the face, which I hope makes sense. And if the ear is visible, then I put that in. While people struggle with lips and nose, I think I struggle the most with ears, just because it's not exactly the focus of many people's faces. But it is a weakness that I should someday address. Maybe someday. So the comment also said that I should recommend resources. Surprisingly, I don't really have many book recommendations. Most of what I learned are from people here on YouTube or tricks that I developed through reverse engineering the styles of artists that I admire. Of course, life draws or photo studies also helped immensely to develop my muscle memory. Generally observing and practicing was what got me where I am today. A confused artist that doesn't know what to do with her life. Just a quick pause to mention that we have reached 100 subscribers, and it's a tiny number, I know, but I believe that you guys deserve this shout out. Whenever YouTubers say that it's you guys who keep me going, I usually brush it off. But now that I'm actually making content on this platform and I've experienced the hardships of doing videos and pumping out different ideas online and kind of sending it out to the void, I really can appreciate when someone says thank you online, because seriously guys, you're the ones that keep me going. You are the reason why I still produce videos and content, so thank you. And I hope you enjoy the video. So to summarize, while you can definitely get away with just learning how to draw using other artists' methods, understanding how things work, the anatomy of our heads, will give you the freedom to play around and develop your own techniques, and will especially come in handy when you're not just copying from photo, but actually drawing from your imagination. It would also help us to manipulate reality, not to be trapped from our references, such as changing eye shape without it looking awkward, or moving the lips and facial muscles to emphasize a certain expression. Having a deeper knowledge on the anatomy of our heads will hopefully shift our mindset to see it as a 3D form and give us a better understanding on the planes of the face, which is what we'll be discussing on the next video. So make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss it. Give this video a thumbs up to let me know to make more content like this. Comment down below if you learned anything or you have questions. And I would really appreciate it if you shared this to your art buddies. So I'm really hoping that we can do this as a community, and I truly appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!